Mike, invocation, please.
Please bow your heads. It's good to recognize how different we are. Our talents, our dreams, our backgrounds, our occupations. It's good to know that when you created each of us, you broke the mold. No one is exactly the same. Even our thumbprint, our voice track are different and unique. Yet we thank you that we can take these differences and mobilize them for the good of Rotary and our community. In our differences, we can think the same thoughts and move together toward a common goal. Bless us as we meet together. Thank you for our individuality and also for our common bond of Rotary. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Double duty this morning, Mike. Any guests?
We have guests this morning. Michael Orban is here. Good to see Michael as always. Welcome. And Gary Rohrbach is going to introduce his guest today.
Thank you. My guest today is Amadou Diop, which several of you know because he was a past member of Emmaus Rotary Club. I had sponsored him about 20 years ago, and he was a member about 10, 12 years, something like that. I'd like him to just take a moment and tell you all about a project, a service project that he is doing in Senegal.
Yeah, I'll take a few minutes. I think I have been volunteering for U.S. government last 3 years, working with farmers in Africa. And I just came back from Senegal in Conakry. And for the last 3 years, I have trained 1,800 farmers directly. Wow. The last organization I worked with are the 3,000 members. So I'm proud to see that I have touched so many people's lives directly. And I have been going back and forth, and I'm going mid-June to plant my peanuts and harvest my mangoes. And then I will stay, finish my, my second half in Senegal. Thank you.
Thank you.
For the volunteer, I got the President Award for 2018.
Thank you, all. Mike died, guys. All right, President Changeover Breakfast is June 27th. Please come all. That evening is the recognition dinner at Bear Creek. See Jeff McElhaney. Email him, text him, give him a smoke signal. Tell him you're coming, okay? Thank you. Some sad news. Morgan Thomas's father passed away, so Morgan hasn't been here. He's been taking care of his dad and mom. Please keep him in your prayers. Thank you, everyone. All right, one last thing. The East Penn Summer Feed Our students met Tuesday as a group with the superintendent and her staff. This should be interesting. Oh, it works. We have a plan. Cindy's been instrumental in getting the plan together. What we're going to do is ask for volunteers once a month from each of the 4 service organizations that are helping out. So that means 3 times during the summer, possibly 2. It just depends on how it works out. That's June, July, and August. It's to help pack a lunch, serve the lunch and read to students from Lincoln and Jefferson schools. It'll be about an hour of your time with the students, half an hour, 45 minutes prior packing, half an hour cleaning up. Okay? We're packing at Bethany Bible Church under the supervision of Beth Laura, Ashley's mom, and then delivering the packed lunches, like I said, over to Lincoln. Right now, the presumed method is to have 2 groups of readers with a leader, and we're going to have some books to give these children to start their own library. As Andrea from Sean's Funeral Home said, we asked these kids how many books they have in their library. Some of these kids said we have 4. Okay, I don't know if you have any kindergarten to 5th graders, but my grandchildren probably have 400 to 500 books. Okay, so it's kind of sad. We're going to bring books to give to these kids, either new or slightly used, from K to 2 and from 3rd to 5th grade. So if you have grandchildren or you want to go out and buy a few books, we'd love to have them, bring them here. We'll take them from here. We're going to store them at Lincoln until the program starts in June. All right, so what you need as a volunteer, you need to get your clearances from the school district. There's 3 that you need to get. You can go on to the East Penn School District. Laura, can you help me out?
What are you asking?
Clearances, the 3 clearances. Where do you go on the website?
Onto Human Resources.
Human Resources, you'll find them. There's an FBI affidavit. It does cost money. However, if you lived in the East Penn School District for 10 years or more, I think you can sign off on that, okay? Except for Eric, 10 years isn't enough.
I already know that.
All right, so if you have any questions, see me, text me, phone me, or email me. You can email Cindy. Sal's part of it, Bill Erdman. Anyone else to help you out so we can get the direction. We'll have more for you as next month comes around. Any other announcements from the floor? Joe.
Okay, as you all know, we have the Emmaus Rotary Motorcycle Polka Run on Saturday, June 29th. Last year we tried it in May and it was a lousy day, although we did get the run in and it worked out well. We raised a net of $4,000 and contributed to a local VA organization. This year we're doing the same thing, and this is to benefit veterans. So we need volunteers to help us with registration. That's between 8 and 9:30, and then there's some checkpoint volunteers and some other categories of volunteers. There's a sign-up sheet on your table, so if you would, please take a look at that. If you have some time during that day to help us out, that'd be great. We're looking to raise about $7,000 to $8,000 net to provide it to a local veterans organization this year.
Thank you,
Any
Joe.
questions? I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Mike.
Hopefully you saw in the newsletter that Tony and Moyer and I are going to start the Plant a Row, the URC style. It's going to start the second Thursday in June, which I believe is June 13th. Now, I'm not sure how much we're going to have from our gardens by June 13th, since we haven't seen the sun since April. I know my plants are not liking this weather. I might have a little bit of lettuce, but that's going to be about it. But if you have something from the garden, wash it off, put it in a bag, bring it on June 13th. I'll keep the reminders in the newsletter, and then Tony's going to take it over to the local food bank. So we're going to run it June, July, August, and September as a pilot this year and see what we get. So look forward to having you involved.
Thank you, Michael. Gary.
I'm assuming everyone saw the pictures. Hillside School, we did a regular cleanup, and we also planted two brand new flower beds, which I have to thank Gary Rohrbach and Pete Ing for designing, and Gary brought all the stuff that makes my life simpler to do. And then the best part is we had over 20 people show up, so made it go quick. We were done in 2 hours. I saw members there that I see all the time. I saw new members there. I saw family members, I saw kids. It was great. We really had a great time, so thanks everyone. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gary. Gary.
I just wanted to follow up on an announcement that Rick made earlier. Next week is our passing of the gavel ceremony, and
That's next month.
Next month.
Oh, sorry.
Never mind.
Gary, you need to bring your wife with you.
I know. Sorry.
So I've had the pleasure of giving out a Paul Harris 2 weeks ago, and I'm going to put this over the bill. We have a special Paul Harris for someone who's been helping us out for years.
Thank you, Rick. As Rick just said, we have a special Paul Harris today. For those that have not dealt directly with him, I can tell you Chris Wills is a workhorse behind the scenes. I've interfaced with him a lot through the foundation and so forth. He's very quiet, but it's amazing how much stuff is going on behind the scenes. He does a treasurer's report every month. When you send something in for a reimbursement, he responds immediately. So I personally can't say enough about what he does, but in terms of what he does for this club, Rick felt we needed to recognize him with a Paul Harris, so he's getting a Paul Harris +1. So Chris. On behalf of the Rotary Foundation, it is my pleasure to present you with this Paul Harris +1 pin.
Oh my God, Chris wore a pin today.
Don, did you hear that? I saw it. Does that mean you're going to pay him?
No, that's never happened.
Bill and Rick. I love a little shirt.
You should have a hat on. The hat needs to go.
Okay, Chris, I know as a guy I shouldn't say this, but you smell really good.
Sounds like a fun.
Another one? Sergeant Arms. Oh, we'll do the raffle after you do your thing, okay?
No, we won't.
Come on.
We'll just charge
Oh,
you.
you need
and-
money?
Uh-huh.
Oh, see, I was gonna try and save these people embarrassment. All right, raffles next. Bill, what do you got? Man with
Good
the...
morning, Emmaus Rotarians. Yes, I am not worried because I confirmed that the Sergeant of Arms does take American Express, so I'm coming. We have a guest here. We're going to have Amadou pick the first number.
I don't trust anybody wearing that kind of a hat.
Sketchy.
Looks like he sells snake oil.
Okay, the first number, last 3 digits, 891.
891.
891. Going once.
Going twice.
Gone.
Karen?
Second digit, 910. Last 3 digits, 910.
We have a winner.
Yay!
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
I didn't buy toothpaste again.
No tuna.
I don't know what we're buying for the next angel, but that will be what it goes for. 893.
893.
Nice, Jeff.
By the way, Eileen just said she's going to give the $10 to the Angel Network.
Yeah, for whatever the product is, I don't know.
Yes, sir.
We haven't said it yet.
Sergeant at Arms, we need a ruling.
Against the old Sergeant at Arms.
Don.
Does he have happy dollars he's gonna give me later?
What do you want, Bill? It's your call. You actually did have that first number? Yeah.
Let's take a vote.
Come on, let's take it. Hands up. Who says Dale gets it? Oh, good girl. Oh, it's like 50-50. Come on, guys. That's a draw. We'll pull the next number.
Jeff, this is on you.
I voted for him. 912.
Thank you, everybody. Dale, sorry.
Thank you for making our day with that shirt, Bill.
Oh, it's not the shirt, it's the hat that goes with it. It's the,
So some of you might be wondering rules for fines. These were established well before I took over. So if you're wearing a shirt that has a business name on it, that would be considered a fine. If you get your picture in the paper, color picture is a $5 fine. Black and white is only a $2 fine. Now I'm kind of torn because the person who has a picture in the paper raised $22,000 plus for pediatric cancer. So I don't know what to do.
I'll pay $5 for it.
You'll pay $5? Because I was just going to give her a just say no to fines card
Do that too.
to say, nice job, but now you're being fined, so I'll take it right back. You feel better now, Karen?
It wasn't just me, it was
For Karen, all right.
AI Orthodontics plus all the
Right.
dental offices around this area. And our
Yes,
dentist.
yes. But those
It's probably your own dentist.
Great job, Karen. Thank you.
It was a great picture, and it was nice to see what it was raised for, but like I said, these rules were established, so I gotta kind of be tough on them. Jeff, you were late, you paid me. John, late and early, that was a double fine, thanks a lot. Oh, I think you left already. Do we have any happy dollars going on?
Yeah, I have 2 happy dollars for my reward.
All right, thank you. Please.
I have some happy dollars. And first of all, fellow Rotarians, I want to thank you for
allowing us to brag about our kids, because who else are we gonna brag other than the family? And so it gets kind of boring. So thank you for allowing me to brag. We have a very ambitious daughter who, in addition, Dr. Aliyah Orvin, in addition to having her doctorate in organic chemistry and being very successful at her job as a head of the patents for a law firm. She just graduated this past Thursday from Temple University Beasley School of Law with a law degree. And she was also honored with 2 awards for academic excellence. So we are very proud. This is a mother of 3, a wife, a worker, and you know, all of us, men and women, know what it is to be in that situation. So thank you for allowing me to brag.
I came in late and I paid you for that, but I don't know if I missed a fine that maybe you imposed on Bill Erdman
Not yet.
for wearing that.
Get the wallet back out.
And the attire at this table is unique.
Yes, it is. I mean,
The whole table should be fine.
It's a good thing Ralph can't see.
that straw hat was just not.
Nothing, yeah.
Hey Dale, I got sexy legs, come on.
Yeah, you go.
But you know what, Dale? He was a beacon of sunshine this morning on such a dreary day.
Yeah, and incidentally, do you have a pin on?
I do.
Where is it?
Right here.
Okay.
Don't worry, the sergeant at arms wouldn't miss that.
Maybe you want to come over and smell him too, see if he smells good.
It wasn't a sniffing contest. I just happened to go by me.
I think this meeting is deteriorating.
First, Sergeant, just a clarification on this fines thing, rules of fines. I thought there was like rules of Fight Club. There are no rules in fines. Isn't that how that went? But anyway, couple of happy dollars for this weekend, Memorial Day weekend coming up. Certainly all of us thanking our veterans and those involved in keeping our country safe. But also, just a reminder at the Remembrance Garden this weekend on Sunday at 1 o'clock, we'll be installing bricks for 17 veterans. The Remembrance Garden has come back like the phoenix out of the ashes. If you go to the Remembrance Garden Facebook page, you'll see the pictures where we had to pretty much strip out all of the rose beds. And we have new plant material put in. We have new benches that came from Emmaus High School yesterday, which is another story. And a new patio off to the side, which is very nice between the Remembrance Garden and the Canals Homestead. So even if you don't get to the ceremony, stop by to see it. It really looks really good. Our team has done a great job over the last 6 or 8 weeks to bring it back from the calamity of the roses going dead on us. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have kids, so I'm not going to brag about my kids, but I'll brag about my sister, which compared to that doesn't seem anything special. But this past weekend, my sister ran her first marathon. And if you know my sister, she's not very fit or athletic. But she took it on. It took her a long time, but I was just so proud of her. Proudest little sister ever. And then also this weekend, I'm going to Cleveland because one of my best friends is getting married. I'm in the wedding. And then one of my other best friends is getting engaged this weekend.
Wow.
I'm very excited.
I'm happy, but I'm not quite as exciting as all of these other things. Yesterday, I cleaned my gutters. This morning, it worked out well.
Yeah, I was just going to say today.
I just wanted to say I'm always incredibly proud of this organization, but I couldn't be more prouder when I see the fantastic job that Rick and Cindy are doing on feeding the Emmaus students. It's nothing short of spectacular. We should be very proud of that.
So Bill, how much money do you have?
I'm going to tell you that.
He's got his American Express card.
American Express card?
Yeah, we take those. Eric has the square thing.
That's not a square meter right here.
We'll keep it simplified.
Okay, we'll get our Jim's
Thank
Thank you,
And I am just going to contribute $200 because I finally got my haircut yesterday.
paid for.
Thank you, Mr. Sergeant at Arms. So, well, I didn't know I was going to introduce Valerie, so Valerie, you're up. Oh, I know you could have. I did it so well.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to have a lot of fun today, and I hope you brought your thinking caps because it's going to be quite the challenge. So today, we're going to take on a challenge, a problem that we kind of all face as Rotarians, and we're going to try and develop these solutions to it, and then I'm going to collect these ideas and hopefully present them to the board at a future meeting. So the big problem we're going to tackle today is one that comes up at just about every board meeting. How do we attract new members? And this is something that we've discussed at length many, many times. Often we look to JP as the membership chair to solve this problem, but it really doesn't fall on just one person. This is something that involves every Rotarian because we all have the power to bring somebody else into our organization. And of course, we want to do that to create the biggest impact in our community and also internationally as well. So at one of the last board meetings, I mentioned word of mouth because word of mouth is both powerful, it is effective, it is super cheap, and we know that it's super powerful and effective because if you look at marketing research that has been done in all these studies, they show that 90% of all purchases have been influenced in some way by word of mouth, which is pretty impressive. We also know that less than 1% of all companies and all organizations have a strategy in place for producing word of mouth, for getting people to talk about them. So what we're going to talk about today are ways that we can get Rotary to be talked about in the community. And so the book Talk Triggers by Jay Baer and Daniel Lemon just talks about exactly that. So what I'll be describing to you today is talk triggers, which is how we get people in the community to talk about Rotary. And today's objective will be to create candidate talk triggers or potential talk triggers that we could then use to expand our organization, okay? So what exactly is a talk trigger? A talk trigger is not marketing, it is not a promotion, it is not a gimmick, it is not a slogan, but rather it is a strategic and operational decision. It's something intentional that we decide to set in some way. And it's something that, again, involves the entire club. We're all playing a role. It is not something that falls on the chair of the Public Relations Committee or the Community Service Committee. It is not the job of the membership committee. It is everyone involved in this talk trigger. And in order for a talk trigger to be successful, there are 4 main points that it must be. It must be a repeatable thing. In other words, every guest that comes through our doors, every new member must experience this thing, whatever it is. It must be relevant to our organization, right? So we have to have something that is relevant to Rotary and what we stand for. It must be reasonable. If a talk trigger is too good to be true, people become suspicious. Okay? But if it's not reasonable enough, it becomes something that's not talked about. So that is going to miss the mark too. So you almost want a Goldilocks kind of zone for reasonableness. And it must also be remarkable. And I mean that in the truest sense of the word, in that it gets people talking. Okay? So when we talk about talk triggers, there are really 5 different types, and I'll give examples of each one. And this I found to be particularly fascinating. I'm always interested in what gets people talking and how that happens. So the first talk trigger is usefulness. And the example that they give in the book is Jay the locksmith, who's with Lockbusters in New York City. And what Jay does is he's competing with all these other locksmiths in New York, right? But he does something really unique. So when you call him and you've been locked out of your apartment, he comes right away, first of all. And then when he's done getting you into your apartment, he then gives an entire security audit of your entire building for free. And that's a good, useful talk trigger because that's what everyone mentions in the reviews for Jay the locksmith. So that's one example. The next example is generosity. And the biggest example of generosity that has been studied the most is the DoubleTree hotels. Have any of you stayed at a DoubleTree hotel before? Okay, so you know that what happens when you check into a DoubleTree hotel? Yes. They give you, when you check into a DoubleTree hotel, they are known for this. They give you a warm chocolate chip cookie, and that is to go with their warm welcome as you come in. So it's, again, this is relevant, this is repeatable. They do it for every person who comes in. It is remarkable in that 2/3 of all people who go and check in to a DoubleTree hotel have talked about the chocolate chip cookie within 60 days of their visit. So that's remarkable, that this is something that is being talked about and spread far and wide. DoubleTree hotels, and of course, the cookies are, they even sell tins of them on their website. That's how well known they are for that. Empathy is another one. Now, empathy is something that we could definitely consider for Rotary and for what we do in the community. The example for empathy that we have is Dr. Glenn Gorup, who is an oral surgeon in Clifton, New Jersey. And so for oral surgeons, fear is the #1 thing that they're dealing with, okay? So more people are afraid of going to the oral surgeon than they are of snakes, than they are of public speaking. I mean, can you imagine someone being more afraid of you than they are of snakes, just because of what you do for a living? So what Dr. Glenn does is he has patients who come from 3 hours away just to visit him, and he's very close to New York, so they could easily go to any other oral surgeon. He has never once been sued, which is really remarkable in an oral surgeon as well, and he will tell you that people do not sue people they like. So there's that. Anyway, in his example, and he does something very simple. All he does is the week before your appointment, he calls every new patient and he says, "Hi, I understand we have an appointment coming up this week. Is there anything you would like to discuss?" That's it, that's all he does. And people mention this, and in the reviews, there was one review in particular of a woman who said, "I can't wait to go back to the oral surgeon." You know, this is quite something. So I found this to be quite fascinating. The next is speed, and I do not suggest that Rotary goes with speed for their talk trigger for a number of reasons. We are actually quite slow with just about everything. But for speed, I thought of the Pizza Hut 5-minute lunch guarantee that they did back in the 80s, which I remember growing up as a kid, that this was something that the schools, many times we had 45-minute lunch break, and so we would all like run over, our parents would come and grab us, we'd go over to Pizza Hut, have our personal pizza, and the waitress would take your order and she'd set a timer on the table for 5 minutes, and she'd go and get your order, and if she didn't have it back when the timer went off, your lunch was free. So that's just what we did. So speed is another one for a talk trigger. It can be the fastest at what you do in your industry. Attitude is another one, and I found this to be quite quirky and fun. Attitude is where you take one thing, and that's usually a mundane kind of thing, and you make it quirky and different and fun, and you're willing to kind of make it different. Sandra's Place and the O'Hare Motor Inn is located in Great Falls, Montana, and it is a pretty desolate town. It's just a bunch of interstate, there's truckers, and on top of, it's got like a population of I think less than 2,000 people, so it's hardly anything. So on top of being out in this remote location and all that, they're also, where in the winters the temperature gets to be 40 below zero, okay? And yet, every night, they have a packed bar, okay? So this is a bar, but you think like bars are, what, a dime a dozen, right? How can they be that different? And in fact, JQ Magazine rated them one of 10 bars that were the top 10 places in the US to fly to. So I was just thinking, okay, like I could imagine being like someone from New York is like expecting to see a list of 10 places in New York or maybe in California or something like that, and instead you're being advised by JQ Magazine to book your flight to Great Falls, Montana, right? And it's because what they've done is they have the bar built up so that it shares the window at the back of the bar is back into the pool. There's like an indoor pool at the O'Hare Motor Inn, okay? So it almost looks like a giant aquarium, okay? So you're looking in and you see this thing. So what happens is at night at the motel, they close the pool and they open it for the mermaid show. Yes. Yes. And they do a show. I mean, they swim all around, they do all this cool stuff. And again, it gets people talking, and not just talking, but traveling there and going and doing their things. There are all kinds of
It's a
cool things that people do.
male-populated bar.
All right, to get people talking about them. Another example of something that was kind of quirky and fun was a hotel chain. It's called Graduate Hotels. And hotels are pretty much a dime a dozen as well. There's almost all this competition, and you have these big name brand hotels like Hyatt, Hilton, and all that. But Graduate Hotels is their own independent chain, and they have been expanding into college towns. Okay? And what they've done is for each particular hotel, they make it and cater it to that town. And so for Indiana, for example, basketball is a big thing, right? And help me out, the coach who would like throw the chairs. Thank you. Yes.
Surprised
So
I know who Bob
they
is.
have, thank you. They have a chandelier with the chairs, okay, that you can like throw around, and they make it all kind of quirky and fun for that particular town, right? They find different things. But what people talk about with the hotel in particular, and it's really mundane and silly, are the keys, like the room keys, because they make them look like fake student IDs for famous people in that town who graduated from the school. And people take pictures of the keys and share them on social media, and they collect them. So these are all kind of neat and interesting things and ways that we can use to kind of get people talking about this. And so the idea is to have a word-of-mouth strategy to give our members something to talk about. Okay, so they should have some sort of story, something that they can then spread to their friends. We want something that is not very complex, so something that's simple, but yet has pretty big impact. That's what we're aiming for, okay? And for today, I have a brainstorming worksheet where, there we go, we'll do one per table. I'm passing out pens. Thank you. And I'll just collect some ideas from you guys.
Oh.
Right. And then here I have a list of ideas for when we could possibly introduce talk triggers, like when we're greeting or introducing guests might be a good time, as we're exiting the meeting, following up with guests after a meeting, reaching out prior, when a member does their first community service project, when they're joining a committee, maybe we could do something fun with the name tags and the pins. You get the idea. I got
Well, no, you already did an impact. You forgot it.
We should say more.
If you have something to say, I'll write it down.
So I've been in front of public since I wanted to. I brought it in 8 or 9. I joined the university. And I think that one of the things that worked out the best for me is just to show you passion.
Oh, it only stars.
Good things I think it might keep me passionate. Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, that's absolutely the intent. To just send someone an email and say, oh, I just want to but if you actually meet that person face to face, and one other thing, I know some of us are good at it and some of us aren't, and that is when a guest comes, it's really, really great as many of our members as possible go to that person and welcome them, hey, thanks for coming, or see you again. So it'll really make them feel welcome. Because I know certain cases, people feel that wasn't, not enough people reached out to it. So that's
Well, one thing I've noticed is, you know, we do all these service projects, and, you know, people get interested, you know, like if they drive by, or oh, what are you guys doing, or, you know, like a yellow vest, you know. It seems like, you know, there's an opportunity to use some of our activities as recruiting events to enlist others. I mean, we tend to do a lot of one-off things, but, you know, if we could, you know, enlist other folks to come to our project events as opposed to just be a Rotary only thing, people will get excited about doing, you know, helping out. They're less excited about joining the club, right? But if you get them there and you actually have fun doing a project, right? Then that creates a hook, you know, to like do more, you know, like you're doing good, but you're having fun at the same time. So how do you use our projects as recruiting?
Instead of getting a guest to come to breakfast, invite them to a project.
Exactly. I would have a lot more, you know, inviting somebody to come along on a project Rotary's doing as opposed to just coming and having breakfast, you know, is a lot easier. And I think, you know.
Exposure, you guys walking the parades.
And with the Halloween parade in Emmaus.
Yeah, I mean, I got so many people shaking my hand, you know, it's like trying to shoo all these panhandlers out of the way of the tractors, you know, it's like. That's like
fundraiser raised $4,000. That was pretty impressive. So I guess the point is invite somebody that you think might be amenable to some of those activities like these here.
Right, and I think they do. They did encourage you to bring a guest to the beef and beer. But yeah, I think that's a good idea though too. But I think the service projects, I think that's really good because you get to see everybody working, and it's not necessarily a dodgy event.
We're not asking for money.
Right.
So you know, people feel like they're contributing to something.
Wrap up. So we'll just go around to the different tables and share our ideas, and then maybe we'll get some more ideas from those as well. So go ahead, Rick and Mike.
Well, fortunately, we had the speaker standing next to us, so we have to give her a little credit for tutoring us. We came up with 3. First of all, we think our breakfast is really good. We should talk to people about the breakfast. We think that comes under usefulness, generosity. I think a great idea, have a pin that says, ask me about Rotary, or ask me about a recent Rotary meeting, something like that, maybe to engage in conversation. Under attitude, shaking hands with our guests on the way out, making sure our guests have felt welcome when they've been here to be with us. That's what we have.
Great, thank you. That's really helpful. Go ahead.
Well, at our table they said we should show passion for Rotary. And when we bring a guest, that maybe we could have members of the club come around to the table where the guest is sitting, introduce themselves, and welcome the person to Rotary on a regular basis.
Yes, I love that idea. That goes very well with what Mike said as well.
Yeah. And the last thing was, instead of inviting a guest to breakfast, invite them to a service project. In other words, when we're out doing something, bring somebody with you to one of those events, get them to see what we are in action, and maybe that would entice them into learning more about what Rotary does. You don't really always get the feel for what Rotary does when you come to breakfast.
That's true. That's a great point. Good.
That was
very good. Cindy, do you have your?
Nothing really different than anybody else did. The only thing that we said is join Emmaus Rotary because we're the largest service organization in the East Penn area.
Yes.
So if you want people of action, join us.
Yes, it's true. I think if you want a job done, ask a Rotarian, right? That's how it is. JP, how did you guys do?
We came up with the club business cards we have, so like membership chairman, president, foundation chairman. Maybe we could put like some of Emmaus training, fun facts about East Penn, people going to, collect them all.
Yes, that's a great idea. That's a great idea, especially for Emmaus, that our town has a lot to offer. How about Laura, what do you have?
We thought of, to key off of the idea of something memorable when you come to do
marketing people at your table. Good, Sue, how did you, oh, sorry, Melissa.
We were just talking about the speaker and having it be somebody that's specifically interested to a special candidate who might be, you know, just to draw other people, get more high profile speakers.
Yes, good idea. Let's see, so Sal, how did your table do?
We cheated a little bit, but I'm kidding. We talked about that the greeters could choose Courtney was talking about when students come into a classroom, they get to choose the method of, high five, pump fist, whatever they want to do when they walk in the door. It's a method of changing it up a little bit. In addition to that, and not because Bill dressed like this, we thought about maybe the greeter could dress in a different attire or something special, just a greeter, when they're a greeter, do something a little different, just to spice it up.
That's true. How many of us did talk about Bill's outfit today? Yeah. That's going to be-
It was a trigger, right?
It was.
Yeah, discussion trigger. So,
Yeah.
But another interesting thing was to personalize, particularly a potential new member, personalize our achievements, make it a real story, and tell that individual story, how we helped somebody, get real specific instead of talking about the broadband, okay, we're a service organization, and we help different groups, but get it real personalized, talk about personalized stories, but we all need to know about those. Connecting with the speaker after the meeting, go up to the speaker and talk to them specifically and engage that speaker regardless if they're a member or not. And then Bill just mentioned about, lastly here, looking ahead at the program. Read the newsletter, see what the program is, and invite a guest who actually might engage with that particular program. And it gets the guest here, but also we're getting the word out to the community.
Yeah, that's a great way to invite guests too. You say so-and-so is on the agenda, and I thought of you. That's a great way to get them in.
And also distracting the sergeant at arms so he could steal all of those and get out of jail.
Speaking of our sergeant at arms, how did your table do?
Our table said everything everybody else did. No, a lot of the things they said. Is it feasible? Is it possible to give any guest a small $10 gift card when they come in as they're leaving? Just think of, or could we rig them to win the $10? No.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same, right?
Yeah,
You're right.
Yes. It was also suggested we might have a few more of the social events. I think that got some people in and helped them sell what Rotary is. Socially. More, not
personal
a meeting,
level.
informal setting. So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And Seal and Alicia.
Well, I think that many of the examples about inviting them to a service project, because I think it is important that we don't just attract members just to join the club and come to the meeting. I think that it is important that from the very beginning, people have a full understanding that this club is service, that Rotary is service. That's what we're all about. So I think inviting them to a service project so that they know that there's a responsibility to Rotary and to the community, and not only the local community, but the international community. We're talking about specifically what we do, that is important.
That's excellent.
I'd like to give an example. We just talked about the hunger project that we're working on with East Penn. If you're a member of other organizations in the community, sometimes you can make those connections. Joe and I are with the Emmaus Public Library, and there's probably a really good way to get children's books, because God knows we have boxes of books from the book sale and so forth. Maybe it's some way we can like that.
Yes, it's always great to make those connections.
Yeah, and if they see your Rotary, the library, and all of that, it all ties together, and one helps the other.
That's true. I think the more they see Rotary in the community, the better.
Yeah.
The better. Yes, Laura.
To spin off of their idea of giving a gift card, possibly if we give them a gift card, we could ask of them to possibly take this gift card, whether it's school money or whatever we give them, and ask them to give it to someone in the community. And then that gives them the feeling of service, maybe somebody who hasn't been in a service organization, and gives them that goodwill feeling of helping someone else, which might make them be attached to what we do.
Yeah, there's been all kinds of happiness studies too that say that the same sort of concept where it's $10 given to you doesn't mean as much, but when you give that to someone else, you get more happiness in that. So, yes.
Valerie,
This may have been said, but maybe not as succinctly, but a few weeks ago, I attended church in Virginia Beach, and several days later, I received a note card mailed to me thanking me for coming and visiting with them and inviting me back.
That's powerful, yeah,
Following
yeah.
up with a
And
gift.
actually Sue did something similar with me the very first meeting that I attended. She followed up and said, thank you for
Very easy
coming,
thing
we
to
really
do and
appreciate
very
you coming.
inexpensive thing to do.
Yes, yeah, but it had an impact, obviously.
Oh, yes.
for it, yeah, interesting. All right, well, if we could have, all the note takers, if you could just see me after the meeting and pass along your notes, that would be really helpful. And thank you guys so much. This is really, really great. We struggle with this at every board meeting, so it's really great to have these ideas.
Great job, Howie. Thank you very much for that. There's a board meeting immediately following this in the room to your right. Please all rise and we'll pledge allegiance to the flag. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.